Hello everyone, George DeSantis here with the look at the market for the week ending June 7th, 2019. I started doing this on Sunday, but we had party time Sunday. We were celebrating Leandro's third birthday. So congratulations to Leandro, Luis and Lisa's last boy. Um, so here we go. Read the disclaimer. The disclaimer simply tells you that I'm not an professional investment advisor, and therefore, you should seek that kind of advice from one of those people who are so qualified. And I do this mostly for my own purposes and put it on YouTube, and those who care to look at it can do so. But it's by no means an attempt to tell you what to buy or sell at any time. So we'll start by looking at a weekly chart of the S&P 500 as we usually do, since this is the advice that I've taken very seriously from my friend Alex Elder. He says, never look at a daily chart before you examine the weekly chart. And there are good reasons for that. Read it in his books, many books that he's written. And on this weekly chart, it's a little busy with the Fibonacci retracement levels and also the Bollinger Bands. However, just pay attention to the colored candlestick bars that I'm going to describe now. This candlestick bar here is a bullish engulfing candle. This is what we had last week. It totally engulfs the body of this candle. So that is bullish, and today we are seeing, this is Monday morning that I'm doing this, we are seeing a gap up here in prices on the S&P. We are now approaching the first standard deviations, one standard deviation Bollinger Band here. So we might see a little resistance there, but so far so good. Insofar as the head and shoulder pattern, we'll examine that on the daily chart. That's where it was really established. So we leave that aside for now. But we can see clearly here that this 38.2 retracement level on the Fibonacci retracements, we clearly came down almost exactly to that level here. You could see the shadow of the candle here almost touching that line, and then we bounced up from there. This, as I mentioned a couple of weeks now, for a couple of weeks now, 38.2 is the really first significant retracement level. And usually you get about I don't know, sometimes the S&P will pull back 10% or so from its high. Well, that's basically what we had. And then we are bouncing off of it right now. Of course, we don't know exactly how high we'll go from here, but we'll meet a lot of resistance at 29.54 or so, which I believe is this level here, this previous high. So if we bring up the, let's see if I could do that. Doesn't do it. Anyway, this is the previous high, and we are going to be bumping up against that pretty soon. We should find some resistance there. Now let's take a look at the other indicators. MACD histogram is still a little below the zero line, but it's seemingly trending up a little. Williams percent are still above that magenta line, that minus 50 line. So we're still in an uptrend as far as that's concerned. And the sum of the rate of change indicator, Jerry Appel's indicator that I wrote in here, that's trending up above that 4% line again, so that's bullish. And the RSI 12 is still above that 40% line. So all in all, this chart is continuing to look bullish in spite of that pullback that we had. So let's take a look at the daily chart. Here's a daily chart of the S&P. You could see here on the daily chart, we went past that one standard deviation line on the Bollinger Bands, and we're approaching the 2 standard deviation line here. So we're probably going to find a little resistance up here. No doubt about that. We still have the Fibonacci retracement levels here, or do we? Yeah. You see the 38.2 retracement level here? You see how close we came to it on the daily chart? The parabolic switched and went below the recent bars. So that's telling us at this point we switched to an uptrend. on the parabolic using the new parameters that I use here, this one, these that I'm pointing to. So I'm going to remove the indications of the head and shoulder, because we could see that it broke above the shoulder. Price went way above the shoulder here now. And so we can call that a failed head and shoulder pattern. So give me a minute. I'll remove those lines to make it less confusing. So I've deleted the markings for the head and shoulder pattern, since it appears to have failed. And that's what I mentioned last week, that these things don't always materialize in a drawdown. So we can, at this time, we can conclude that the head and shoulder pattern was a failed pattern. Now, what we have here is the 4 crossing above the 9. 9 is now looking to cross above the 30 right here. And so this seems to be telling us, indicating to us that this market is looking to go higher. It is going higher, of course. As I mentioned before, you can see the parabolics are below the most recent bar. And we are heading toward this major resistance level of about 29.54, I think it is. We'll check that out and see if we find any significant resistance there. Let's go down to the MACD histogram. You can see it turned bullish here, and it's now trending up again. And so we started trending up from below the 0 line, and we're trending up above it now. And you can see Williams percentile once again is above that minus 50 line. And on the daily chart, that's nice. That's interesting, because notice that when it crossed below, it was way back here, way back, and I think it was in May. And now, for the first time since that cross below, it is now crossing above here. So that's an indication this market's changing its personality, so to speak, as the Shaken analytic people say. Formula, the sum of the rate of change indicator has just ticked above the 4% line, and RSI 12 is still above the 40% line. So again, this is both the weekly and the daily charts of the S&P are indicating that we are now in a nice uptrend again, with the prospect of some resistance at 29.54 or so. Let's take a look at some other charts. I'm going to go through a couple of charts from stockcharts.com that we've looked at before. I'll try to go through them pretty quickly, so we'll have some time later on to look at some individual stocks on Shaken. Here we see the new high, new low index. It's a weekly chart. You can see that it seemed to have found some support at the 50-day moving average. And now we have a nice bullish engulfing candle here, looking at this candlestick type chart. But as long as we stay above that minus 4,000, we're in good shape. Here's the impulse bar, the chart with the impulse bars. You can see that they've been green for the last, this is a daily chart. So for 4 days, the impulse bars have been green, which means we are not allowed to short this market. We're only allowed to go long or hold. Here's a chart with the McClellan oscillator, and you can see that it was trending down for quite a while, and now we got a nice bump up here. So McClellan is looking strong again. And here's a chart of the S&P 100, the percentage of the S&P 100 above the 200-day moving average. You could see that it ticked up once it hit that 50%, that 50 line here. It ticked up. And usually the research that people have done with this shows that when between 50 and 65, you could trade this market. And so that's where we are now, right at 62. And here's the best choice chart of the S&P 500. And what we see here is that it at the extreme of 16.6, which is oversold level. This line here is 10%. It's now at 16. So we have a lot of room at the top, and this thing can continue to rally above here. Now, at least for a while anyway, until we get between that 50% and 90% line, or those lines, I should say. So we'll turn to Shaken Analytic software. I've gotten permission from them to use it in this context. And so what you're looking at here is a list of stocks that I either own or owned. And this time I still own most of these. I got stopped out of Dell, and the rest of them I still own. You can see, for example, Cadence Design, we had a relative strength buy here. It was oversold, and now it's becoming a little more overbought. Not overbought, but it's coming out of the oversold region. Microsoft looking pretty good still. In fact, it's now overbought according to this channel line here, but it's still oversold, somewhat oversold here. It hasn't reached the overbought region here. I still own it. In fact, I bought some more recently. Synopsys, also like Microsoft, reaching that upper line, but we still have a room to grow here before it becomes overbought. So I still own it. iPay, still own this. You can see similarly, it's reaching that overbought line here, but not here. So I'm still owning this one. MasterCard, still own MasterCard, and it's doing quite well. Again, very similar characteristic above at the upper dotted line of the channel, but has some room to grow here. And you can see they're all up to date. These are today's increases, these green percentages here. PayPal, which I love a lot, as you know, is a similar kind of situation. You could see money flow is increasing again. Institutions are buying it, and it was in the oversold region, but now it's ticking up. So I still have this, and CRM. Well, Salesforce just indicated they're buying a company, another company. I forget the name of it, and they took the price down a bit. In any case, it still looks pretty good to me. Visa, well, what can I say? Visa is has the same personality. It reached the upper channel line here, and it still has a little room to grow here to become overbought. And of course, I got rid of Dell, and it hit me. I got stopped out somewhere in this region here. So I would buy it again, but it's still in this dangerous zone here. It's way below here, so I'm not going to jump in right now. Here's a list of stocks. I'll tell you how I accumulated this list. I screened for stocks on these screeners here. All of these. See, I updated it to yesterday's date. Yesterday I updated all of these. And then what I thought I'd do is I'll take the top ones, the top 3 from each one of these screens and make up another list. And these are all the top 3 stocks. Some of them were repeated, but I made up a list of all of these, and I also looked for those that were oversold. So the top 3 that were oversold, and here's your list. You can see Applied Materials is up 4% today. Cadence Design up 1%. Cummins up 1.65. So all of these are performing well, and those were meeting the screen that I did. I'm looking for stocks that were oversold on all of these other screens here, and they were the top ones, top rated ones. Now I'm going to show you another screen. This might be a little confusing, but what I did was this is a list of the top 3 stocks in every one of these other screens that I did. Sandy Shakin screen, a couple of screens that I did. And these are all of the stocks, but many of them were not oversold. This screen that I just showed you before are stocks that were in this list here, but were also oversold. So if you want to take a note of these, notice how they're all green today. They're all in the green. So this is very powerful stuff on Shakin Analytics. Well, folks, I think I'm going to call it a day here and have a good week in the market. Make some walking around money.